The psychological thriller Criminal Minds Evolution is back, and the hunt is on. This season, the criminal profilers from the Behavioral Analysis Unit are tracking a network of serial killers connected by something far more dangerous than anyone expected. It's the kind of high-stakes investigation that will keep you guessing and make you question who's really pulling the strings. With edge-of-your-seat storytelling, this is the season to watch. Catch the new season of Criminal Minds Evolution, streaming May 8th exclusively on Paramount+.
Businesswoman, entrepreneur, and supermodel Cindy Crawford founded Meaningful Beauty with world-renowned cosmetic specialist Dr. Sabah to share his age maintenance-focused skincare treatments and formulas. After using Meaningful Beauty for 8 weeks, 100% of women said their skin looks vibrant and bright. Tomorrow's gorgeous starts today. Go to meaningfulbeauty.com/beauty to receive 25% off and get the Targeted Treatment Duo gift set for free. meaningfulbeauty.com/beauty. That's meaningfulbeauty.com/beauty.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, she was a glamorous influencer who convinced her followers to leave Brazil and join her in the U.S., only to sell them into sexual slavery. We'll talk about the new season of the Wondery podcast, Guru, Don't Cross Kat. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca. How do you say hello in Portuguese?
I don't know.
You don't. They don't
But
say
I'm sure
hello.
You don't say hello?
I'm sure it's very beautiful because Portuguese is a beautiful
There's
language.
no word
Okay.
for that in Portuguese.
Oh.
Are you just joking with me?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay.
How do you say schadenfreude in Portuguese?
Yeah,
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude. It's universal.
Yes. Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hola, Rebecca. That's how you say hello in Portuguese. I just looked it up.
You just Google it? Hola. That would have been my guess, too, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, this is Monday's program.
Yes, it is.
What's coming up on Thursday's show?
On Thursday, we're going to talk about the new podcast from 2020 in ABC Audio. It's called Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy.
All right, so Kevin, before we start the show, we have some congratulations to pass on, do we not?
Yeah, I mean, some people might have seen this in our Facebook discussion group, but we'll just tell it to the world. Our friend and pioneering podcaster Bill Rankin has retired from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and Chris Joyner, who is also a friend of the show, asked if the four of us would record a video to send him off at his retirement party.
Did we do that?
We did do that.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
Did you forget for a minute?
No, I was just kidding.
Okay.
I was there.
Yeah, I know you were there. That's why
and
I was
I've seen the
present.
video, yes.
No, we just really want to publicly acknowledge Bill for all that he's done. Great journalist. Really, I think, guys, you would agree, was an example of somebody who brought real journalism skills to podcasting. And his investigations were sort of rooted in those old school, professionally sound techniques and just found a way to apply good audio to them.
Yeah, including train noises.
It's
Right, Laura?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know the train that I used to live next to. Yeah, and I think I always appreciate somebody like Bill because he was is such an insider in the court system and has that institutional knowledge of all the people that are involved. And if he's telling you a story, he knows what he's talking about. He's just got that level of credibility, but he does it in such a nice way that you can't help but love the guy.
Toby, you love him too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the beginning of sort of the true crime boom, he was one of the people who, at least for me, kind of showed how things could be done in ways that were sort of responsible and smart and finding, the value of reporting in podcasting and not just like aimlessly rambling on or whatever. So he's had a lot of influence on people who probably haven't actually heard his podcasts, but have sort of benefited from the example that he showed early on.
And also, guys, I mean, anybody will say that if they know Bill Rankin, he is a very nice guy.
Yes.
Devoted family guy, friend to all, and just, we make fun of sort of like the gentle way that he talks.
What? What do you mean the gentle way he talks?
Hi, I'm Bill Rankin. Did you know that I'm going to be leaving my job? It's okay. I'll still get money. The government wants me to just hang out at home. But also, I put a lot of my money in a pension.
You think? You think the HAC has a pension?
I'm sure it's something. Yeah, a lot of those newspaper jobs are unionized. So it'd be like, I got a 5-day work week, and now they let me go home. And I can't wait to see all the people who get laid off in the next couple years.
Hey, you said that in the video too. It's too soon.
Too close to the truth.
Too close to home.
Too close to home. But a great guy, and we wish him well. And by the way, he will be finishing up the next season of Breakdown. He obviously did not get to complete the season of Breakdown on the Trump trial, as we know. And he will have one swan song on whatever the case is. So
he'll be on the deep dive in September.
There you go. She's like, hey, I need time to read Toby's book.
Hey, I'm not dead. I'm just retired.
Do you know what retired means?
Is this how you spoke to the class that you spoke to earlier today, Kevin?
No, I did not. I got asked to speak to a high school class about true crime.
Yeah?
Oh.
And yeah, unfortunately, like my Zoom account is only 40 minutes. It's not the upgraded one.
But didn't they start the Zoom?
No, I had to.
Oh,
the way the school. Well, I tried, but did you get the 2-factor authentication notice? You got it. You didn't respond to it.
Sorry.
So there we go. So that's why.
So this poor teacher had to like fill up 10 minutes at the end of the class with something?
Because I vanished. I mean, I had the 10-minute warning, and I'm like, I was going, yeah, poof, gone.
Oh.
Absolutely gone. But they were a great class of high school kids who had a lot of great questions. They haven't listened to a lot of the investigative podcasts, the short series that we do. I asked like who listened to Serial, and there were hardly any hands.
What about Bear Brook?
I would say I think that the hands, because it was a wide shot. I think the hands might have just sort of been like going up as high as their chins.
Yeah.
They weren't like. So I had a hard time. I would ask a question, "Who did this?" and there was like no response. But very few of them, surprisingly, have listened to Serial, which is usually the gateway drug to all these different. I mean, a lot of our listeners will say, "Well, I listened to Serial. That's how I got interested in the genre."
But weren't they like 5 or 6 when that came out?
Well, yes. I mean, I didn't think they listened to it at the time, Toby Ball. But I think if they're interested in true crime today, I thought that they would have consumed that. They're very much more into My Favorite Murder and Crime Junkie and those sort of episodic.
And probably Crime Talk too, right?
Yeah, probably Crime Talk. Yeah, the
Crime
TikTok.
Talk. Yes, the TikTok of
crime. Yeah, there's a lot of places, and YouTube has a lot of true crime stuff. And I will say, guys, by the way, because now that our podcasts are available on TikTok, the commenters on TikTok are fucking mean.
Yes.
They are mean.
Yes.
Really? About us?
The Karen Reed TikTokers are pretty nice for the most part.
Well, it's because you're on the same side as them.
That's true.
They did ask, like, are you following the Karen Reed case?
Yeah,
I'm like,
did.
are we? You bet we are.
And then what did they say? Did you ask them what they thought?
I did a quick overview of both sides of the case, and I said, who thinks she's guilty? And nobody raised their hand. And I said, okay, who thinks she's innocent? And we had a good... People went right elbows to the sky. So, yeah.
Well,
it's an interesting case. It
means
always
they've been paying attention.
3 days worth of lunch money, and they could be listening to it for a full month.
3 days?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think inflation has taken care of lunch prices and pushed them up a little bit.
They have more than chocolate milk for lunch these days.
All right. Well, Kevin.
Last thing, the high school teacher who set this all up in the middle of this revealed that he had been picked for the Eric Windhurst jury.
Wow.
Which was the crime case in our first joint book called Our Little Secret. And that they ended up pleading out, so they never went to trial. But I was like, now I get it.
Yeah, that would have been a very interesting trial.
It would have been
had it occurred. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Kevin.
Yes.
Should we talk about the thing we are supposed to be talking about?
Let's do that.
All right. Leading off.
Desiree talked about how pretty Kat was, how insightful she was, how she could read people's energies, how she could communicate directly with the universe to find answers to people's questions.
While living in Canada, Desiree became a follower of Kat Torres, a fellow Brazilian and online life coach. The social media star says she has mystical powers and dispenses advice to her audience. But as Kat's influence over Desiree grows, her friend Patty notices changes in her behavior.
And she said, Kat told me that he was doing black magic. He's doing black magic. It's why I can't leave him. It's because he's forcing me to be with him.
Years later, Patty learns Desiree is among several women who've left their life behind to move to the U.S. to be with Kat. And as the influencer's behavior grows more bizarre, she forces Desiree and others around her into prostitution.
Is it just dancing I be doing? Said Desiree. Kat laughed and said, yeah, just dancing.
Season 2 of the Wondery podcast, Guru, Don't Cross Kat, recounts the rise and fall of Kat Torres, from model to life coach to international sex trafficker. Brazilian journalist Chico Felitti updates his Portuguese language podcast On the Case, interviewing people on 2 continents to explain how one glamorous influencer could go so far to control her followers. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Don't Cross Kat. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Laura, as I just mentioned, we have a Brazilian host here telling a story about a Brazilian person. And as Kevin mentioned, this podcast was originally in Brazilian Portuguese, was it not?
Yeah, it was called A Coach, or I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but that's how it's spelt in Portuguese. A Coach.
So what did you think about the host of this podcast, Laura?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. You know, a lot of times we get hosts where they're like, well, when I heard about the story, I had to find out more. And you're like, but did you really? Or is this just something you thought you could pitch? But this guy, I felt like he was legit. He was a journalist who had also become an influencer. I liked how he talked about his own sort of Instagram feed and what we might see there with his shirtless pics and his dog. But he was also a journalist who got his start investigating stories, he said, where things aren't what they seem to be. And that is what brought him to Texas, where, you know, Kat Torres is living at that time. You know, then he sets up the whole, oh, they were living a perfect life, but were they? But I felt like he was really relatable to listen to. He was conversational. He was interesting. He put enough personal information in there to make it so that you wanted to listen to him, and he didn't just feel like sort of a sanitized generic host. And the fact that, you know, he is from Brazil gives him that other sort of level of knowledge of her, the country, and how that sort of plays into maybe some of the way this whole case played out with her bringing these followers in as she did.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's the best part of the podcast. He's so charming, right? I mean, I certainly loved his line about how he got, like, why she was so alluring, even though he's super gay.
They looked like supermodels.
Very attractive blonde and a pretty attractive brunette.
Tall, thin, gorgeous, right out of the latest Victoria's Secret fashion show. I mean, I'm super gay, and even I can see it.
We have heard so many people who are not charming in their first language, and so it's always a treat when you get somebody who's really charming in a second or maybe even a third language. So he's a great communicator in that way. Also, like you said, about all the photos, Laura, of him with his shirt off, have you seen any?
No, should I?
No.
Have you?
I have, actually. You know, doing research.
Is it worth it?
It's worth it.
Worth a look?
Yeah, he's got a very nice build, a lot of tattoos on his pecs, and George Stephanopoulos would not do that, right? We would not expect. It's just a great sort of look at, okay, different culture, different thing. Like, people are still okay with an investigative journalist who also is kind of a social media influencer, and that's fine.
To be
It's
fair,
like
a
our
lot of these
Secretary of Defense.
I was going to say, a lot of our Fox News people pose all the time naked with their tattoos showing. That is a thing in some spheres of journalism.
All right. 2025, you do you, yeah.
So, Toby, what we have here is the story of an influencer and a cult leader, sort of, at the same time. Do you think that this is handled differently than other stories we've heard like this?
Not a ton. I mean, I think what's kind of interesting about this is that it sort of combines a sort of influencer / cult leader with the sexual exploitation of women in this sort of coercive control thing. I guess that's a little bit of a twist, but I agree with Laura and Kevin that Chico is sort of the most is the thing that stands out most about this podcast. Because I think for the most part, it feels like a very, very conventional true crime podcast of the kind that we've heard quite a bit before. So you're kind of looking for what differentiates this from other things that we've heard. And again, it's sort of the narrator and then the nature of possibly having two different sort of subgenres combined. But I don't necessarily think they use that very effectively. As a matter of fact, it seems as though they tell the stories sort of separately and kind of lose track of sort of the influencer aspect of things when they really dive deeper into the sexual exploitation thing that really just involves like 4 or 5 people living in this house together.
Right. Laura, last week we reviewed a podcast called American Hustlers, which was initially based on like a book somebody had written, right? And one of our things that we complimented that podcast on was how far afield it went from the book, like how much additional reporting they did and how much additional work those hosts did in telling that story. We do hear in this podcast that he interviewed Desiree and she ultimately decided to not let him use the tape in the show. But other than that, and hearing that, this doesn't really stray far afield from the book that it seems to be based on, right?
Right. And I think that would be like one of the, I don't want to call it criticisms, but one of the observations I made about this podcast as I was listening, I was like, oh, again, well, as she said in her book.
Yeah.
Well, as she said in her book. And I was like, well, you know what? If that works for you and you have a book that has enough detail that you can take that and then change it into the narrative structure that fits a podcast and still tell the story, like, good on you. I wish there had been a little bit more outside sort of information. It felt like, oh, okay, cool. She wrote a book. It was an interesting story, but I think I would have liked a little bit more context and like more voices.
Yeah, there was a scene, Laura, where I was wondering, like, oh, okay, Chico, where are you getting this? Which was talking about Desiree's audition at the strip club. And there were just some sort of details there that just seemed sort of literary. Made me wonder, like, okay, are you embellishing here?
When it was her turn, Desiree climbed up onto the stage. She ran her hand through her hair and forced a smile. She began to dance. The club manager watched her squirm around the stage, trying to look seductive. The opposite of how Desiree was really feeling.
But really where they were coming from, you know, the interiority that he was expressing about Desiree, it comes from her book. So it does provide a very detailed look at her perspective, and they do use it. But I'm kind of surprised that, I don't want to say how few voices come into it, or it's hard to tell without having listened to the original podcast how much of this is new. I mean, it's certainly new to an English-speaking audience. This wasn't one of the true crime cases that made it big in the news in the U.S., but I think probably other than the interview with the 2 neighbors from the beginning, I'm not sure sort of how much.
Yeah, what happened to those neighbors? They were funny.
Did we ever come back to the neighbors?
I don't know. I don't think we do ever come back to the neighbors. The ones who were like, this is the most exciting thing that's happened on this block in years. I've always wanted to hear from the neighbor.
What was the number 2 thing that happened on that block that was exciting?
I don't know, but I always think about like the people who live next door to Keith Raniere and who weren't in that next to him.
That little townhouse.
And they must have been like, what is the deal with all these people talking about volleyball all the time? Like, what is going on, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to ask those questions, though, when you join our Patreon.
Oh, my goodness. That was not a smooth transition.
Wasn't?
It was. I mean, I'll give you A for effort.
Do you think our neighbors are wondering what we are doing right now, talking about podcasts over and over and over again?
Yeah, well, they've gotten used to it by now. We're not as sexy as Kat, though. People say, wow, look, even though I'm super gay.
I haven't looked at Kat. Is she sexy?
She's super, of course, as I said, she's just super sexy.
Okay.
Yeah, she's beautiful. So to digress, you can get great content from us mediocre looking people at patreon.com.
Speak for yourself.
/Partners in Crime Media. Your hair is amazing.
We're in the
obviously.
business section.
You get exclusive content like the Crime Writers on After Show, where we digress from the review and talk about other things, including this week, something that happened with Teddy's car. So I want to talk about whether or not Rebecca has any right to feel the way that she feels. We'll leave it there. We always find out how Rebecca feels about the Karen Reed case because we are in the second trial.
I'm sorry, I'm still reeling that you said I don't have you're questioning we don't have a right to feel how I feel.
We're going to talk about it. We saved those details. But the readathon is back.
Yeah.
The second trial of Karen Reed is underway. And it's always dangerous to talk about what has happened on Monday when we're recording on Friday, but it was an interesting first week.
It was an interesting first week. Lots happened. We had a little bit of fiery, spicy testimony from Carrie Roberts. We had some very sad testimony from John O'Keefe's mother. As we were recording this, a very boring pathologist is talking about how they do blood serum alcohol extraction in a hospital lab. So it's not all fireworks, but there's been some moments for sure.
Yeah, if you want some really good coverage, you'll want to join us there. But we've got all sorts of other great things. We've got Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, where Laura Bricker solves mysteries, or at least mysteries to her, in her quaint AF town of Exeter, New Hampshire, plus other parts of the Granite State. Laura, what's coming up on future episodes of Leave It to Bricker?
This is a last-minute switch because a real mystery unfolded in my life this week that has only just been solved. What happens when a certified cat detective's cat goes missing?
Can't wait to find out how that one turns out.
It's an experience. I might have fleas now, Kevin. I don't know, from crawling around on the ground looking for my cat.
The suspense is killing me. Also, Toby Ball, the aforementioned Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, where Toby brings on fantastic guests to talk about interesting books. It's just like your regular book club. You bring your own white wine and your own hot takes. And if you join us at the Deep Diver level, you actually can take part in the podcast when it's a recording. You can put your thoughts in the chat section. Toby is recording next week on May 5th. And Toby, what book will you be discussing?
The book is called American Prison by Shane Bauer. It's about the private prison industry.
I always like to ask, how far along in the book are you at this moment?
I think I'm at like 43%. I read them on Kindle. So yeah, I'm ahead of where I normally am.
Good on you. Good on you. So all that stuff available at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. It's just one way you can support us, including our Amazon shop, amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On, or join us on Facebook. You're still doing Meta. You say that you aren't, but we know that you are.
We know you are. You're looking at your crazy town group. You know you are.
Yeah. Or subscribe on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, X, Facebook, all those places, as we love to engage with you.
All right, Kevin, does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. So, Kevin.
Yes.
Who's the sponsor for this episode of Crime Writers On?
Oh, we welcome a new sponsor. It's Rula Health.
Ooh.
Finding the right mental health care should be simple and affordable, but for many, it is not. You got long wait times and high costs, and so that means like finding the right provider, it can really make getting help feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so that's where Rula comes in. Rula connects you with in-network licensed therapists that accept most major insurance, right? So it has been a very trying time for many people.
Yes.
And I always say, you don't maybe necessarily want to take everything that you're feeling
and put it on Facebook in a post?
Yeah, or tell your sister who's going to go because she might be the problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so like you really want to talk to a professional, find somebody that you're comfortable with. That's where Rula comes in. They partner with a network of over 10,000 therapists and psychiatrists nationwide, enabling you to find your personalized solution and the right therapist for you based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements. So every therapist is carefully vetted, so you are in expert hands. And for the in-network covered care for most major insurances, you pay for as little as $15 per session.
Wow. So join the thousands who have already turned to Rula for support on their journey to better mental health and well-being. Getting started is so easy. Just visit rula.com/CWO
CWO
today. That's RULA.com/CWO
CWO
to connect with a licensed therapist who truly cares. Your mental health matters. Individual costs depend on your insurance and deductible. All right, Kevin, let's finish up our discussion.
Yeah, because we got to make dinner.
We do?
Yeah, we almost never have time for dinner, and that's why HelloFresh is so fantastic.
Oh, HelloFresh.
So you can skip the grocery store and make cooking at home easy, fun, and affordable with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Of course, it's delivered right to your door. But what we like about it is that you don't have to take too much time to make it. Now, of course, they got all sorts of great recipes like the pork sausage spaghetti bolognese.
Ooh, my
it's in
favorite.
their Hall of Fame. Very easy to make. You got a little extra time. You want to put that effort into the gingery coconut chicken soup.
So good.
Sometimes, though, you just got to get it done, right? Because you've been podcasting all day. So HelloFresh's prep and bake meals come together within 5 minutes of prep while HelloFresh's 15-minute meals are done in just 3 simple steps.
Incredible.
So you can finish up what you're doing. You can put some great food on the table. Remember all the time, though, you also save from, like, grocery shopping?
Oh, yeah, Kevin, there's so many great options here.
Yeah, and you can get up to 10 free meals with a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
Okay, CWO10FM.
Yeah, for like 10 free meals. 1 item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM. So, Kevin, who's the next sponsor on the show?
Oh, we're brought to you by Quince.
Oh, Quince.
Yeah, are you getting ready for that spring travel season?
Yes.
Here's why you got to go to Quince. I've got 2 great reasons, all right?
Yeah.
So you want to treat yourself to luxurious upgrades. So you want Quince's high-quality travel essentials. You need them at a fair price. Things like the lightweight European linen styles for $30.
Kevin, you have that shirt.
I do, and I love it. It's easy to wash. It's super comfy. And in addition to buying all this great clothes to go on a trip, what are you going to put it in?
A suitcase?
You can get premium luggage options and stylish tote bags, all to carry it in. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they partner directly with the top factories, cutting out the middleman, passing the savings on to you.
Listen, you want to go on vacation, and it is fun to bring new stuff because then you've never worn it before and you get to wear it in a different place. I love Quince so much.
For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades that you deserve from Quince.
Go to quince.com/crime for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
Toby.
Yes.
I found myself listening to this podcast and trying to figure out what exactly it was that Kat was doing that would make this a cult. I heard a lot about witches, but didn't hear of anything witchy happening, for instance. It just seemed like kind of a bad person who also happened to have a platform. But did you hear something that I didn't hear?
I mean, I think like it doesn't seem like what I would think of as a cult, but I do think she claims to like speak to spirits and, you know, be psychic and this kind of stuff. So I think it gives off sort of culty vibes, but it's not, I think, what we normally think of as a cult. For the most part, it seems like sort of a influencer huckster who managed to get a couple people tight in their orbit and exploited them.
Laura, we do have a human trafficker here, and
Yes.
listening to the Diddy podcast that we're going to be reviewing on the next show, I got a really clear definition of what's considered human trafficking, which is something that for me has people get called human trafficker sometimes, and I'm like, I'm not sure that that's what that actually is, but transporting people in order to have them perform things sexually or abusively, and it's like labor, yeah. And it's with coercion, with payment, or having some sort of power imbalance is obviously like a big part of it here. And here we have a woman who is a sex trafficker. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I hate to say it, I feel like I assign like gender roles to who I think is going to be sex trafficking somebody. You know, I'm like, oh, it's a man who's making, you know, but in this case, it's this woman. And, you know, she's trafficking Desiree and Leticia. And it's one of those where when you hear it, you're like, yes, okay, she's controlling them. They're in the cult, but oh, now they need to make money. And so she is basically putting them out to do sex work with no choice, which is that power dynamic you're talking of, Rebecca. And that part to me was really interesting because they disappear. They're with her. Now they're in Texas, but you hear the details of what these women are going through and how things are not comfortable anymore. They are having medical complications and they're still being forced to do this. And that was interesting to me because I felt like this was definitely different. And it's also equally rage-inducing because of the way that Kat exerted her influence over them to make them do this.
I could be wrong, but I believe Nancy Salzman was either accused of or charged with sex trafficking in the NXIVM case. And we know that Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of sex trafficking for arranging abusive encounters between Jeffrey Epstein and minors. Kevin, what did you think about this part of the story?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just be like really cold-blooded with an observation.
Sure.
And this is...
Why not? That's what we do here, right?
Right. And this is like if you're assuming that this fits the definition of a cult and you throw it in the same subgenre as Wild Wild Country. What is this? Wasn't that the Bhagwan was what cult, Toby?
The Rajneeshis?
The Rajneeshis, yeah. So with that or Nexium or whatever, it seems like the way that they always support themselves financially is to sell ointment or candles or
tithe their members.
Yes, or have pyramid schemes where you have to keep buying the next course. And I just was
Scientology.
Or Nexium, right?
Yeah.
And I just was sort of always surprised that what they never sold were the members, specifically the women as sex slaves, right? Because, the overhead cost for that is zero. And if you're going to like really be coercive, that just seems to be a way that you could make a lot of money. And that just doesn't seem to be the way that most cults do. And maybe this is sort of proof that this isn't a conventional cult. And I think what Laura was saying is the scope of this doesn't meet a lot of the other ones that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be one of the reasons. But these cults, they need to finance themselves. But I think, guys, and back me up on this, I think this is also another example of Flynn's Law of Cults.
How's that?
Where the weirdness of the cult is equal to the amount of video they have of themselves.
Uh-huh.
Now, it might be like her like trying to get into a bath or whatever, because it's very easy to go live. But, that's how we
That was
roll.
a weird bath, though, right?
The alien bath?
Yeah.
She put in some rubber toys, a bag of gummy bears, bath bombs, plastic packaging and all, gold tinsel. It all seemed pretty harmless until Kat added razor blades to the bath.
Toby, have you ever thrown a bunch of gummy bears and razor blades into a bathtub to commune with the spirits or something like that?
Not at the same time.
Yeah. Same. I've had
It's
gummy
one or the
bears in
other.
the bathtub,
Yeah.
not going to lie.
Yeah, but you didn't throw them in plastic
No, I
bag and
was
all.
eating them
Yeah.
while I was in the bathtub.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's like
Yeah.
the last days of Rome right there.
100%. Yeah.
But you didn't have like a thing of grapes that you could eat
Oh,
like
I
one
assume Kevin was feeding them to you. But
No.
Oh, no.
But our bath situation is pretty sweet. It's very gummy bear conducive.
Yeah, but it's not Kevin conducive, apparently. It's like, do not come in here. Close that door.
Kevin hears the bathtub running, and then it's like a magnet. He has to come in. It's like he's such a pervy little dork.
Do you need a towel?
So, Toby, some of
Bath bomb?
this. What did you think about the bilingual aspect of this podcast?
The only thing that really kind of stood out to me is that I thought, like, I have no idea what these clips were saying, and he would just sort of translate them. But it always felt like there was just like one or two words that would be said or repeated or whatever that you could kind of pick up what they meant by it. And it was like, oh, okay. So I kind of get what's going on. So that was kind of clever. Yeah. There's something like listening to somebody translate another audio thing that you're listening to can wear thin pretty quickly. So that they kind of keep that under control, which I thought was good.
People were talking about good times they had with Desiree. We could see that we are looking for someone that deserved everything the friends were doing for her. She deserved that.
Not only do they change their names, but then they have actors speaking this. This must have happened half a dozen times. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, all right, why don't you just say that nobody in this, unless I otherwise say, like, everybody's name is made up and none of these are the actual people talking. They're just reading off transcripts. Because it just happened again and again and again and again.
I don't think this breaks the record. I think the record was set by that podcast. It was done by that woman who played the lawyer in Jury Duty. Remember that one we listened to a few weeks ago?
The unborn?
Yeah, she's like, literally every name has been changed. Everything has been changed.
All the facts have been changed. It's basically just fiction. I think it's one of those things that you kind of run into when you're trying to tell a story that basically was carried out in one language into another language. If you want to use archival stuff, you got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. So, Laura, do you think your friends would come looking for you if you suddenly were disappeared into an Instagram world and then seemed to not be available?
I do. And I think
Really?
I think
I
some
don't
of
think
my
mine
friends, Oh yeah, no, I think my friends have been preparing for the day that I get taken in for a cult. So there's multiples, or that I willingly go to investigate a cult and get taken in.
What if it's a witch's coven?
What if it's a deli?
Deli.
I mean, I went to the deli and everyone was like, "You're crazy."
I know. I've been reading up on that place.
Yeah, it's wild. So yeah, certain friends of mine would be like, "We got to go get Bricker out of there now. Let's go. Like, this has gone too far." And then they'd be like, other friends would be like, "Oh, it's just Laura." You know,
it's not like Patty who would wait a couple of years to find you.
Yeah, no, I think it's they have me on a tracker already when I go out on work. Like, we have a Life 360 circle so that people can follow me, so they make sure I don't get like taken in when I'm out doing interviews on investigations. So
Laura, side question about that. Do you think Life 360 is an accurate location and data source, like say for forensic purposes?
For criminal.
Well, I'm just curious. Do you think it's accurate? Has it been accurate in your
It has been accurate in mine. And I'll tell you when it was really accurate was when my son, Will, got in a car accident over February break. And I was like, "Where are you?" I don't know. And I was able to go on the Life 360 and pull up his exact where he was and tell the police where he was.
All right. Laura, you got to come on the readathon. That's all I got. I'm just going to leave it there.
It's pretty amazing. Like, I've seen, like, it'll show, like, what side of a house you're in. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, it's crazy.
It really gets it down within a few feet.
All right, I'll just say it. I know this is a side story. Jen McCabe's daughter was driving around, according to her Life 360, driving around Canton at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning, the night that John O'Keefe died. And her claim on the stand is that Life 360 is actually pretty inaccurate a lot of the time.
Not like that.
Anyway, it's just one of the many interesting facts about the Karen Read case that I felt important to insert there. So, Kevin?
Yeah.
Why can't you cross Kat?
I don't know. It says don't cross Kat. And I'm like, I don't know. Should I put a hex on you? I didn't quite, I mean, look, she's a bad dude, right? And probably justice has been served in this case, but I don't know. I guess I got a different vibe from the title about her ruthlessness, about what she was going to do. But we always say titles are a promise to the story, and this one doesn't quite. I don't want to say it gets lost in translation because that's too on the nose. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a good title. It draws you in.
Well, you kind of expect like she's going to chop your fingers off with bolt cutters or something. Like, don't cross her. She's going to torture you.
I think that was her
cancel you.
sense of herself, though. You know, when she talks about it, she's like, I'm normally very nice, but if somebody does something to me, boy, you really got it coming, you know?
Yeah.
Don't cross me.
Yeah. So I guess you're supposed to say it is don't cross Kat.
I'll cancel you on Instagram if you cross me.
I'll yell at you over the phone.
Yeah.
Instacart is here to keep you on the couch this basketball season. With pre-game rituals and post-game interviews, it's hard to find time for everything else. Let Instacart handle your game day snacks or weekly restocks with delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. Download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days. Excludes restaurants.
Create an oasis with Thuma, a modern design company that specializes in furniture and home goods. By stripping away everything but the essential, Thuma makes elevated beds with premium materials and intentional details. Using the technique of Japanese joinery, pieces are crafted from solid wood and precision cut for a silent, stable foundation. Assembly takes just 5-ish minutes with no tools required. To get $100 towards your first bed purchase, go to thuma.co/Pandora. That's THUMA.co/Pandora.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the podcast Guru, Don't Cross Kat. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for this podcast?
Yeah, so I'm kind of neutral on this podcast. I'm going to go thumb sideways. I thought the host in this podcast was really engaging. He was interesting to listen to. I think the reason I'm thumb sideways is we've consumed a lot of media about cults, about this sort of situation with celebrity influencers. And I think I've just become a little jaded because I feel like at this point, for me to be like, ooh, this is a really crazy cult story that I'm listening to, it's really got to be a little bit different because we've heard so many of these stories that are so very similar. So what sets this story apart? I don't know. She hung out with Leonardo DiCaprio, like,
for a hot second.
Yeah, for like enough to be photographed. So it wasn't necessarily anything that was wrong with the story. I wish they hadn't relied so much on the book that was the background material for this. But I think it's just that we've consumed so much cult media that I'm like, you know what, for a cult to really interest me at this point, it's got to be a really crazy cult. So thumb sideways.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Guru, Don't Cross Kat.
So in sports, there's like these sort of statistical things where it's like wins above replacement, which is essentially like if you replaced a player with a person who is absolutely average, like how would they do? This feels like kind of a replacement podcast. It just feels just very kind of average, like the kind of thing we've heard a lot before. The narrator, this guy Chico, is very personable. You know, certainly didn't mind listening to him talk a lot over the course of several hours. You know, the story just doesn't, if you were involved in it or knew them, you'd probably be like, wow, this is a crazy story. But just in the sort of universe of true crime stories, it doesn't really stand out very much. I don't think it's something that's going to like haunt me in my dreams or anything like that. That being said, it's like completely competent. I mean, there's nothing, you know, it's well produced. I thought the writing was pretty good. It's not really boring. It's just not super exciting either. So I'll give it a mild thumbs up. It feels like a thumb sideways is a little bit low for me, just because I think they took what they had and they made a very, very competent podcast out of it. It's just not super inspiring. So yeah, mild thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn, thumbs up or thumbs down for Guru, Don't Cross Kat.
I think I'm going to be sideways on this. It's not a bad podcast. In fact, you know, I was listening to the first couple episodes in the car with Lily, and she was like really into it. And I was like, okay, this is not bad, but it's kind of things that we kind of heard before. The enterprise itself was kind of rudimentary. It's not as big a cult case or as big a social media case as some of the other ones. It's just kind of weird. And it certainly was a big story in Brazil, and that's great. And I'm actually glad that Chico brings it to an English-speaking audience. I wish there were more podcasts, particularly English podcasts, that are translated into other languages.
Produced into other languages,
excuse me, because good storytelling is good storytelling, and I think that you can bring those tales to other audiences. And Chico's definitely the best part of this podcast. I think that his writing is good, super personable. That saves it for me. The crime story itself, the telling of it's good. Kat did some bad stuff, and she went down for it. But beyond that, like, I don't know if this is like something that should go to the top of your queue, but you wouldn't probably be disappointed if you listened to it. So I'm just sideways.
I was waffling between mild thumbs down and sideways, and I'm looking at Chico's Instagram right now, and I'm going to go sideways.
Oh, my God. Look at that. Yeah.
Oh. No, I don't mean to be gross about it. But no, I actually really like Chico a lot, and he is the saving grace of this podcast because I found the story to be, you know, I don't want to say unremarkable because, of course, it's remarkable in its own way. All these stories are. But compared to some of the things that have been made into multi-part series that we've heard, this is a relatively small plot, right? And it's about a couple of people who got sucked in and were abused, and that's not great, and that certainly is worthy of a story, but is it worthy of a newspaper or magazine story, or is it worthy of a 6-part piece of audio? Like, I would lean toward the former. So, yeah, and also there's not a lot of, unfortunately, beyond Desiree's book, there's not a lot of additional original reporting, which I know is hard to do when people won't talk to you. That being said, it also should limit the scope of what you actually make out of the thing that you're making. So Chico's great. Would love to hear another podcast that you put together with Chico at folks at Wondery, but I'm sorry, I got to give this one a thumb sideways, and that's about it. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week.
Crime of the Week!
The Hollywood Palladium will be the home for a first-of-its-kind sporting event. Organizers are holding a live sperm race. Teams from USC and UCLA will compete in front of a live crowd, complete with color commentary, instant replays, and wagering. To be clear, this isn't about which of the donors is the first to the starting line. It's about which individual sperm is first to the finish line. Fans, if you can call them that, will watch the action captured on a microscopic camera.
On a giant screen.
There are so many questions that it's almost not worth contemplating where exactly the sperm are coming from, how to tell who's who, and if they're racing toward an egg or just an imaginary finish line. Sperm racing is the brainchild of some young millionaires, surprise, who want to raise awareness of male fertility, which seems like a pretty elaborate reason to blow a load, or weird reason to say the
blow
least.
your load, yeah. Blow your wad, yeah.
They're calling it the world's first sperm race, but that's not true. Each one of us is here because that little swimmer that makes up one half of you finished first out of 300 million. So congratulations. We are already winners. So panel, if this is going to be a thing, each contestant is going to need a name like a racehorse. Who will be the winner of the first sperm race? Laura Bricker.
Well, I'm just on the racehorse generator right now, and I'm going to go with the Jazzy Jizzman.
What do you think, Toby? Who's going to be the winner of the first sperm race?
Well, I was thinking more sort of Kentucky Derby as being like fast sperm, I guess. So I was going to go with Seattle Spew. But I think it would be better to have Seaman Biscuit.
Oh, good.
Very good, Toby.
That's good.
So, Kevin, what is the name of this first sperm race winner going to be?
Nick Cannon.
Oh, yeah, probably.
It's always coming in first.
That's right. He's always coming in first.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Laura Bricker, if people want to reach out to you on social media to say hi, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
What about you, Toby? If people want to congratulate you on your cleverness, how can they find you online?
Toby Ball and H on Blue Sky.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm a Kevin P. Flynn.
You can follow me everywhere, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On, including TikTok. And I encourage you to join our amazing community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group, the place where civil conversations actually happen, if you can believe it. And when they get uncivil, they stop immediately by me. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. You'll get the after show, Married with Podcast, etc., etc. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the really terrific Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also put gummy bears, gold tinsel, and razor blades in the bathtub. All the time. On behalf of all the crime
But
writers...
I'm not allowed in to watch.
No, on behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. And I've seen the video, yes. So are we going to hear that right now or what?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that was just for...
That was it?
That was it, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we just really need to, publicly acknowledge
Just start
Bill.
that again. Sorry.
Speaking of retirement, I have a retirement announcement.
Hold on, we're not done, Laura. This fucking show's going off the rails here.
What about you, Twitter? If people want to... What about you, Toby? If people want to... Sorry. I'm really tired. What about you, Toby? If people want to congratulate you on your cleverness, how can they find you online?
Twitter Ball NH.